And hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hidden Realms channel. I am your humble GM, Joshua MacGregor, and I am here, as I always am, to talk a little bit about the latest episodes of the Reserve List and of the Mockeries. So this will be talking back episode 3 of those two different series. Let's go ahead and do our little gimmick. We've got our little d20 here. We're going to roll insight, and that is a 2. That's a 2, ladies and gentlemen. The insight today will be probably very bad, and that's actually potentially accurate, because these episodes are coming out in such a way that sometimes I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about. So we're going to see how it goes. With this one, we're going to see what I end up talking about. I have not really pre-prepared. We can talk about what happens in these latest episodes, so let's do that. The Mockeries episode 3. Right, okay, so the Mockeries episode 3 leads them to their next location, location of Merle Stone. And here, actually, I can talk a little bit about something that I really enjoy about Dungeons and Dragons and storytelling, but especially early levels of storytelling, which is ramping up the stakes. So with the Mockeries episode 3, they go to Merle Stone, which is the next location on their tour. It's up near the mountains. And that was part of the world building that I put into it, was trying to make, the mountain sort of a feature of this area and starting to connect things into people's backstories a little bit more, um, and really getting the implications of people's character decisions and choices to sit in their minds, to really kind of go like, oh, these are the potential ramifications of what we're doing. That being, of course, and here's the spoiler warning again, that of Matt Shesha, the Yuan Ti High Priestess, and of course of Balzabul, who is the general of the 7th layer of the Nine Hells and is the patron and father of Theremin. So we have these two characters who, because of their commitments to various people up in the outer planes, or down in the lower planes rather, who are on opposite sides, these people who have not been part of the Blood War, or don't need to be part of the Blood War, sort of know now that there's this potential for them to end up at cross purposes with one another. So that was the huge thing that I was eager to introduce in episode 3 of the Mockeries, was this idea of, you guys are not necessarily going to remain like these guys were always on a trajectory to sort of make friends with one another sort of slowly because of their personalities and what have you, and that is fine. That is well and good for this kind of story that we're telling, but there's the possibility of actively being at cross purposes with one another, and it was really interesting to gauge reactions to that, which were Callum, who is a fantastic player and who has really warmed to all of the D&D rules in a spectacular way. Callum was going like, I don't want to fight Thesia. I don't want. I'm gonna die if that happens. Which, considering her skill set, it might. Although again, once again, considering his damage output, which has not yet become apparent, but low level warlocks with Eldritch Blast, people, that really could go either way. It'd be whether she could charm person him in time, I think. Yeah, I would be very curious actually to see how that went. Not that I want those 2 characters to fight at all. Um, but it is an implication of the world building and therefore is interesting and is worth bringing up. So, yes, the Mockeries, they came to the new town, they sort of there's this little mystery with the guys and the things, um, and, of course, they visit Madame Mad, and Madam Mad, people will notice if they are watching the reserve list, is a slightly different version of that character. Very powerful, but she's interacting with different people, and she's not doing an auction. She's doing divinatory stuff. The idea I had was that Madam Mad would work slightly differently for any group that she was interacting with, um, but also, she's got a branch in Oddmore, in Merle Stone, and in Batterbury that you guys have seen so far. I talked about this last week about wanting Madame Mad to be a continuous figure uh, that would be available no matter where they went, and it is uh, it is very interesting to me that Madame Mad sat better with one group. We were willing to go and hang out with her for over an hour, well over an hour with the reserve list, and that she was not quite as popular with the Mockeries, who were fully like, yeah, we don't need to talk to her again, again for a while. Um, Even though she has very incredible powers and has already dropped hints as to some background stuff that watchers of the God Heist may be able to start piecing together. I'm very excited about some of the continuous the continuation of those plot threads that were left over from God Heist and how they are very, very, very subtly woven in these 2 campaigns. Um, Let this be a lesson to anybody out there, and you'll have heard this from somebody other than me, obviously, before from me. But mysteries are difficult to pace well in Dungeons and Dragons because people will roll natural 20s on their insight checks and or find evidence that you didn't think of, but they're like, I'm gonna look for this, and you're like, oh, that does make sense that that would be there, and they follow that to its natural conclusion and skip a bunch of steps in your mystery. Forgive me, I just bit in the inside of my mouth, so it's just a little bit painful to talk on that side. Um, right, it's difficult to pace them well, and this was one of those times when it was the sequence of events for me was twisted around. I wanted the creature um, to remain a bit of more of a mystery for a bit longer, um, and had this whole idea that they would be, sort of gathering evidence at the bank and etc. Um, but they discovered very quickly that that is who it was, and um, And so, sorry, I wanted them to be gathering clues, and then Mad Shesha and Balzabul would turn up and make everything a little bit more complicated. So things would like sort of reach a peak complicated mystery point before unraveling. But that wasn't the way it went. Um, what they did not discover so far is, well, here's the thing: is they've sort of discovered who it is, and they're going to confront him. Now, here's the thing. I'm talking this back, and I can't remember if Matt Shesha and Balzabul have showed up yet. I am assuming that they did in the last episode because I edit these and um, first I play them, then I run them through a thing to make them look pretty, and then and then I edit them and upload them. I split one session's worth of D&D into 2 episodes for the Mockeries, and the exact order of scenes, I'm not completely sure of. So I hope I haven't just spoiled the next episode for people. If I have, I am sorry. Uh, but if I haven't, good. That's what I meant to do. Let's talk about the other one because I know what happened in that one for sure. The Reserve List episode 3, where they finished the mystery of Batterbury Town. Once again, once they applied themselves to the actual mystery solving, it ended so quickly. It was phenomenal that they knew exactly what to do and they suspected exactly what it is. I will fully just say this: Alberta Saunders is far smarter than I am and knows all of the storytelling tropes in the book. So me trying to create a mystery relying on these tropes, there's no way that I there's no way that I can pull anything by her if there's adequate setup for it. So if anything's gonna feel deserved, she's gonna know what it's gonna be before I get there. So Alberta Saunders playing Gwen, just phenomenal detective mind. And she also plays in one of my home games that's wrapping up soon. And that's like the whole identity of her character is like solving mysteries and learning the truth about things. It's so good. It makes me feel anytime that something happens that I have planned that she doesn't find out about, I feel so accomplished. Um, it's always pushing me to try to design more and more interesting stories with, I should learn how to red herring better, but I'm not terribly good at that. My attempt with Pierce was a fair attempt, I think. Um, but yeah, they found out that it was a two-person job. This one. Um, yes, the decision at the end of this episode to give them 90,000 gold pieces. 90,000 gold pieces is a lot, especially for first level people going into second level. Um, and I'm fully aware of that. So watch the next episode if you want to see some funky stuff happen with that plot line. But yeah, yeah. So sort of wrap things up in Reserve List and starting up of a new uh, place in the Mockeries. Um, the other thing I wanted to just talk about is the way that the world building has sort of developed over the course of uh, these last few sessions as we've sort of gone from town to town, which is um, I talked about this before. It's like these two campaigns are of the same ilk in that they are both Race to the Battle of the Band games, but also are very different because they involve different heroes. And these different heroes have different things that interest them and different things that are going to be relevant to them. And that extends so far as the world building, that extends so far as the design for the different towns that they go to. So Merle Stone is the first example. Next week, you will see the example for the reserve list of their second town. But Merle Stone, while it has all of this stuff to do with like the geography of the world, some pre-established stuff about the Goliath mountains, it is a situation which I designed to more deeply explore this 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 thing where there's somebody who worships a god, an active god of the abyss, versus a warlock of the nine hells in the group. And so the idea I had was there is a newly formed werewolf who is who is a bank manager of a bank which holds deposit boxes for various groups various churches and worshippers of various religions. And one of those is the cult of Asmodeus. So he decides to steal money from from the bank. Um, and this means that the devils have a reason to want him. The devils have a monetary incentive to, the funding of their cults on the material plane, to hunt this person down. And for reasons not yet known, that Cheshire wants Thesia to kill this person, this werewolf. Um, and that is so I have started to see the threads of storylines that can go forward, but the thing that I wanted to talk about is this idea of, as the story goes forward, as you see sort of who's gotten more screen time than other people, I think it is important to just feel out this balance. There's a sort of intuition about it. Um, so the next town that the Mockeries go to, I will design for something different than this particular type of encounter, with this werewolf and what have you. I will design it to challenge them in a different way and potentially challenge some of them more than others. Um, the the ongoing stories of all three of these characters are such that I can focus in on one or more of, what like up to one one or two of their personal stories for longer in one town and then switch to the other. So same with the reserve list is we've just finished a sort of introductory one in the next town. There's a minor spoilers, but not really. I've put things of interest there for one person, sort of more in particular than others. Um, Although there's a universal appeal to what I've done for the next episode, the reserve list, so you should watch it. Um, but after that, we've fully finished shooting the next the final bits in Merleystone and the final bits in the next town uh, that the reserve list are going to. So it's on to the third town, and now I'm starting to get an idea in the reserve list of like who needs more screen time, who needs more fleshing out, who can we spend a little bit more time on as we get into these episodes. And it sort of does feel like that formula of like normal television where they introduce, sort of their group in the first episode or two, and then down the line they have episodes that are more concretely focused on each individual member of that group, uh, for the express purpose of getting to know them and what drives them better and getting people more invested in their stories as we go forward. So you can fully expect that, um, for both of them, actually. Um, that does mean that there is a certain amount of looseness to everything, but I think that D&D should be loose. I feel like some of the best campaigns are driven by the players as much as the DM. And while I am creating these areas and hoping people explore them, and maybe even hoping people will explore them in a particular way, the best things that happen are always because of the dice and the players doing something that I don't expect. Um, so people solving mysteries quicker than they should, perfect. It leaves more time for going and talking to Madame Mad. People, uh, dice going a particular way and the villains getting away, dice going a particular way and villains that I thought were going to live ending up dying. Uh, all of that stuff is really fascinating. And keeps it fresh and keeps it interesting to keep coming back to as we keep writing these storylines. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for sure. Man, what can we talk about these episodes? There will definitely be a lot more to talk about next week when episodes 4 of these 2 stories come out. Um, yeah. Um, I'm actually just gonna that's gonna be a weird part of the video is just where it's just me just clicking my teeth at the camera. I apologize for my ooh, for my doing that. All I wanted to do just now is um I was just thinking of something and I wanted to check something on my phone. So forgive that. Forgive that very, very odd moment. But I am back and here and ready to talk about D&D stuff. Um, so truly, I'm kind of at a loss um, at the moment. We can talk about escalating stakes some more, but I feel like I've talked that part into the ground. There's a particular kind of joy to watching your players start to grasp things for the first time, especially new players. And there's a particular kind of joy in people starting to get really invested in their dice rolls. And it's so awesome because it means that the story means as much to them. They're as invested in their characters as you are in them having a good time and them telling and telling their stories, telling the stories that they are most passionate about telling. Um, I think this will be a topic for next week. It'll be well, I will be more interested in talking about, um, in terms of raising the stakes, in terms of combat, what that looks like for this race to the Battle of the Bands, especially because this is not meant to be. This is meant to have real stakes without necessarily um, a very high chance of character death. I think everybody's super invested in their characters. They're new players. I don't want to put new players in a position where they don't get to finish those character storylines that they're so excited about when they make that person and they fall in love with that person. And I don't want yeah, it's that so there's that a certain amount of disappointment with that, and then there's the slog. When you are a new player, it is a slog. I know for us experienced players, it's actually fun to go and just make new characters off the cuff. Just that's something that I do in the evening sometimes. Um, but but for new players, it's a really big deal, and it's only after you do it a couple of times that it starts to sink in and get easier. So I'm not interested in running a very highly lethal game this time around, and that's something I will talk about a little bit more next time because I've come to that decision after experience, uh, after experiencing this game and what feels right. I didn't necessarily explicitly do that when I started doing this. I kind of had it in my head, but I didn't say to myself, Josh, you're not going to kill anybody, and you're not going to put anything nearby that has a very easy chance of killing them. Um, but as the sessions have gone on, it's become necessary to sort of put that into very concrete words. Um, I got very lucky during one of these sessions that I didn't have to pull a rabbit out of a hat to keep somebody alive. But you guys will see that coming up in a bit. Um, the one thing I will talk about a little bit more um, is the institutions that I have set up and how the world building sort of works around those. So when I go to world build, I usually start with a map. I usually start with a map or ideas of what the characters are going to do and flesh things out from that sort of middle ground area. I find it really easy to come up with interesting maps and interesting names for places and stuff, and then sort of attribute the meaning to the places afterwards. So create a town near the mountains, bring people there and kind of go, right. So the most logical things are let's make there be Goliaths in these mountains. Let's uh, you know, um, let's do little bits about the sun and how it peaks over them and how these people live up here and et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff. Um, but the challenge I wanted to give myself is as we go, uh, well, not the challenge, just what happens when you continue the story is different facilities become necessary to create. Um, so in Merlystone, I needed to create a hospital. I always knew that there would need to be a hospital, but I actually didn't make it in time for the actual episode. So made it kind of all on the cuff. Now the Green Coven Hospital is a thing. Now, covens, generally speaking, are no more than three hags. Um, but I'm extending that to be sort of a coven of witches as well. And in this case, they're friggin' clerics. So wisdom-based people and healers. Does that mean that there's a Green Coven hospital elsewhere? Does that mean that this was the first one? Well, those are now the questions, right? Is there an individual hospital in each town, or is there sort of a chain? Um, these are the questions that start to come up just from exploring the world, and that's a really interesting thing because it would never have occurred to me um, unless I was doing like really detailed work on sort of like major cities of Garanseal and Sessenseal and Metaseal and stuff like that. Um, to go as detailed as naming hospitals and who's going to be running the hospitals and what have you and what their temperament is going to be. Um, but yeah, and then wanting to do a bank thing, wanting to have a bank in one of these stories, creating the Outer Plains Bank and kind of going like, okay, world building wise, where's the head? Where's the head of this bank located? What kind of clientele do they serve? Are they the only bank? Probably not the only bank, but they're the first one that I've looked at. And if I know that there are going to be other banks who are potentially in competition with this one, then there's room now for that to be in my head going forward into the next towns that they visit. Is there, you know, is there a uh, active rivalry going between Outer Plains Bank and a different bank in the next town, which means that the loan prices are really good. Like the competition has actually driven um, the repayment interest rates all the way through the floor, and people are actually doing really well. That's an idea. I don't know. That sounds like a good idea to me. Alternatively, is the Outer Plains Bank sort of the one for the northwestern hemisphere? You know what I mean? Area of Garandia, and there's one that's sort of like, oh, maybe there's a bank, out northeast that has a stranglehold on a lot of these citizens. I don't know. Maybe because the Outer Plains Bank is so specialized that they don't reach all the way across the country. Do these banks reach across nation borders? That's a fascinating question. With the Outer Plains Bank, I assume they have to. Like, I would assume that the Outer Plains Bank operates uh, with footholds in Gorendia and uh, I mean, they would have to operate in Aruhan, maybe maybe even in Thorogrove, but where and then it's like, okay, so where are these different, groups who worship these different gods most prevalent? Do they store their deposit boxes in the banks nearest to them? Probably. Do these banks ever try to do the runaround on governments? Well, if they're anything like international banks in the real world, absolutely, they will try to duck taxes uh, and leverage their businesses across seas and all that kind of stuff. So these are the things that are really fun about world building like this, sort of as you go in different directions across country. It's something I that's definitely changed the way that I think about world building, um, and made me want to kind of do this for this setting, like going forward. There are 10 kingdoms on Saigalia, and I would love to explore every inch of it through various different games. To the level of detail that we are going in Race to the Battle of the Band. So this is an incredible um, gift to me, I feel, and I'm eternally grateful to all of my players for this gift of uh, being able to tell these stories together, and for me to feel more and more deeply connected to this world that sprang out of my head half baked one day. Um, yeah, it would be wonderful uh, to keep digging. Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait to keep going and to see where it goes and see what comes up. So that's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, keep checking out the Mockeries and the Reserve List. We're super excited to keep bringing this show to you and keep playing for ourselves. And if you find enjoyment in that, that's the goal of this sort of COVID time is to be entertainers as well as having a good time ourselves. So thank you very much and take care. Bye bye.